If someone asked you to name the richest country in Europe, chances are you'd say Switzerland, Norway, or maybe even Monaco. But when measured by GDP per capita, the real answer is actually Luxembourg, a country so small that many Americans couldn't even point it out on a map. Despite having fewer than 700,000 people, Luxembourg has consistently ranked among the wealthiest countries in the world. That got me curious. How can such a tiny country generate more wealth per person than the United States? And are the people who live there really as wealthy as the numbers suggest? Let's join J30 World Discovery as we explore why Luxembourg is the richest country in Europe. Luxembourg is tiny, and that's actually its greatest advantage. Luxembourg sits between France, Germany, and Belgium, covering less land than the U.S. state of Rhode Island. Most tourists simply pass through on their way to Paris, Brussels, or the Swiss Alps, so it rarely becomes the main destination. It also doesn't have world-famous landmarks like the Eiffel Tower or the Colosseum. Perhaps that's one reason why Luxembourg often stays out of the global spotlight. But behind that quiet image lies one of the most successful economies on Earth. Unlike Monaco, which is famous as a playground for the ultra-rich, Luxembourg is a real country with towns, villages, schools, elections, and ordinary families living everyday lives. Most people here are teachers, engineers, bankers, office workers, or small business owners. What's remarkable is that Luxembourg didn't become wealthy because of oil, gold, or tourism. It became rich because it realized very early that a country this small could never compete in industries that require massive amounts of land, huge populations, or giant factories. Instead of trying to do everything, Luxembourg focused on industries capable of creating enormous value while requiring very little physical space. That decision completely changed the country's future. From steel to a global financial powerhouse. Luxembourg wasn't always wealthy. For much of its history, the country depended mainly on agriculture and remained relatively poor. Everything began to change during the 19th century when rich iron ore deposits fueled a booming steel industry. Mines opened, factories expanded, railroads were built, and steel became the backbone of the economy. Even today, ArcelorMittal, one of the world's largest steel companies, still has its headquarters in Luxembourg. But steel also had its limitations. Heavy industry requires vast amounts of land, large workforces, and abundant natural resources, things Luxembourg simply didn't have. Rather than competing against industrial giants like Germany, Luxembourg made a strategic decision to shift toward financial services. That turned out to be one of the smartest economic decisions in Europe. Banks, investment funds, insurance companies, and multinational corporations don't need massive industrial parks. They create value through knowledge, capital, and financial expertise. At the time, Luxembourg already had several major advantages: a central location in Western Europe, political stability, a reliable legal system, and a multilingual workforce. Over time, international financial institutions began moving in. Today, Luxembourg has become the largest investment fund center in Europe and one of the biggest in the world. Most of the money managed there doesn't actually belong to Luxembourg itself, but the country earns enormous revenue by managing, regulating, and distributing investments from around the globe. Instead of trying to compete with everyone, Luxembourg chose to become indispensable in a handful of extremely valuable industries. The real secret lies with the people who don't live there. At first glance, Luxembourg's economy is already impressive, but that still doesn't explain why its GDP per capita is so extraordinarily high. The answer begins every single morning. Hundreds of thousands of workers drive or take the train from France, Belgium, and Germany into Luxembourg for work, then head back home at the end of the day. Today, around 220,000 cross-border workers commute into Luxembourg every day. An astonishing number for a country with fewer than 700,000 residents. The reason is simple. Salaries in Luxembourg are among the highest in Europe, while housing inside the country is incredibly expensive. By living just across the border, these workers can earn Luxembourg-level wages without paying Luxembourg-level housing costs. This creates a huge advantage for the country. These workers help generate Luxembourg's economic output, but because they officially live in another country, they aren't counted as residents when GDP per capita is calculated. That doesn't mean Luxembourg's wealth is somehow fake. Even if every one of those cross-border workers became an official resident tomorrow, Luxembourg would still rank among the richest economies in the world. In my opinion, this also reminds us that GDP per capita measures the value an economy produces, not the amount of money each individual actually has sitting in their bank account. Luxembourg isn't selling low taxes, it's selling trust. When people hear that Luxembourg is one of the world's largest financial centers, their first assumption is usually the same. It must be a tax haven. I thought that too at first. But after digging deeper, I realized that low taxes are only a small part of the story. If low taxes alone were enough to make a country rich, plenty of other nations would have achieved the same success. What Luxembourg is really selling is trust. Imagine you're responsible for managing billions of dollars on behalf of investors from dozens of different countries. You'd want to place that money somewhere with predictable laws, respected contracts, transparent regulations, and a stable political environment. That's exactly the reputation Luxembourg has spent decades building. Instead of chasing short-term profits, the country invested heavily in a reliable legal system, strict financial regulations, and close cooperation with the rest of Europe. As confidence grew, banks arrived. Then came investment funds, insurance companies, law firms, and multinational corporations. Each new company made Luxembourg even more attractive to the next one, creating a powerful financial ecosystem that continues to benefit the country today. Another major advantage is its workforce. Many people in Luxembourg speak Luxembourgish, French, German, and English fluently. That makes it much easier for international businesses to operate across Europe. It may sound like a small advantage, but when you're managing billions of dollars, those small advantages become major competitive strengths. The more I learned about Luxembourg, the more I realized the country never tried to become Europe's biggest economy. Instead, it focused on becoming one of Europe's most valuable and dependable partners. And for a country this small, that strategy has worked remarkably well. Luxembourg is incredibly rich, but it doesn't look rich. One thing that surprises many first-time visitors is that Luxembourg doesn't look like what most people imagine Europe's richest country should look like. You won't see endless lines of supercars or neighborhoods filled with extravagant mansions. Instead, you'll find clean streets, efficient public transportation, low crime rates, and quiet neighborhoods where people simply go about their daily lives. It feels much more like a comfortable Western European country than a playground for billionaires. That's because much of the wealth associated with Luxembourg isn't personal wealth. The country's banks and investment funds manage trillions of dollars belonging to companies and investors from around the world. That money flows through Luxembourg's financial system, but it doesn't mean every resident is a millionaire. Of course, salaries here are among the highest in Europe, but people still pay mortgages, raise children, and deal with everyday living expenses just like families anywhere else. Ironically, one of Luxembourg's biggest challenges is housing. Because the country is so small while attracting so many high-income workers, demand has pushed real estate prices among the highest in Europe. Even professionals with excellent salaries often struggle to buy a home. That's also why so many people choose to live across the border while commuting into Luxembourg for work. To me, that's one of the country's most fascinating contradictions. It has one of the richest economies in the world, yet many of the people helping create that wealth don't actually live there, while local residents still face many of the same cost of living pressures seen in other successful cities. Can Luxembourg stay on top? No economy stays at the top forever, and Luxembourg understands that better than most. Instead of relying solely on banking, the country has been expanding into fintech, cybersecurity, satellite communications, and even space technology while continuing to strengthen its financial sector. But its greatest advantage hasn't changed: trust. That reputation took decades to build, and it can't be copied overnight. Combined with its central location, multilingual workforce, political stability, and strong legal system, Luxembourg has created an environment that continues to attract businesses from all over the world. As long as the country can maintain those strengths, it has every chance of remaining one of Europe's most successful economies for many years to come. The biggest lesson from Luxembourg. The most fascinating part of Luxembourg's story isn't simply that it's rich, it's how it became rich. The country didn't discover massive oil reserves, nor did it build a giant manufacturing empire. Instead, it focused on a handful of things it could do exceptionally well. It built trust, specialized rather than trying to compete in every industry, and quietly became one of the world's most important financial centers. Maybe that's why so few people ever talk about Luxembourg. It isn't Europe's loudest country or its most famous one, yet it has become one of the continent's most valuable economies. In my opinion, Luxembourg proves that a country's success isn't determined by its size. Sometimes, making the right long-term decisions is far more important than having the largest population or the most natural resources. So, before watching this video, did you know that Luxembourg is actually the richest country in Europe? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy discovering surprising stories and fascinating facts about countries around the world, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to J30 World Discovery so you never miss our next adventure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.